How the Dice Fell.
Flint Daniels and the Demon Shield of Syterria.
Part 4.
When last we left our fearless explorers, they were basically just about to make the journey home. They'd gathered the obtainium, and it was just the journey home. But the big notable thing about the journey home is they convinced the people at Syterria to plug the obtainium cell into the ship, and so when we played Space Alert, basically the center reactor refilled automatically every turn. So basically you didn't have to worry about energy from the central reactor, which I knew would make the game easier, but it really made the game easier. And it's interesting, it made it easier not just because there was less to do, but because it took a whole level of management away. And so basically it was a whole other thing you didn't have to think about. And so it just made it so that basically you had enough mental space to cope with the problem, which is the whole point of Space Alert. Is you have almost enough mental ability to cope with the problems, but not quite. That's sort of the fun of the game. But we basically had enough mental capability to cope with the problem now. So
we did fantastically on the trip back. It
And
also
you did not
helped.
crash?
What was that? No, we were landed completely intact. We didn't take any damage.
Is that the first time?
I'm
it's
sure
certainly the first time we've been completely intact. We have landed successfully.
Okay.
In fact, we landed successfully last time, and what was it that
because we did have to BS it a little bit because we fixed some damage on the same turn that the damage.
Oh yeah, we cheated because it was a role-playing game, not a Space Alert tournament. So we technically cheated last time. We also have landed successfully, I think, once before.
There have been a few instances where we've landed. The default assumption I make is that we're going to crash, but yeah, this time around, not only did we have the B cell of obtainium providing us, we got extra B cells, so that was nice. We were able to do that without worrying about compromising the mission. But not only that, but we got a fairly easy collection of threats as well.
Yeah, it was interesting because it's random, and there's a threat level that you're supposed to get to, but somehow it just seemed easier this time. I don't know, maybe I screwed something up or something, but
I think the things we faced a bunch of threats. There were a bunch of internal threats. There were at least 2 internal threats. There were, I think, 3 or 4 external threats, which seems like the right number, but they were simpler. You know, there was the cryo shield fighter, which has that thing where the first hit doesn't do damage, no matter how heavy a hit it is.
Right.
There was a stealth fighter. Other than that, I don't think that they were weird.
And some of it might just be actually we're starting to get familiarity because we've actually been playing with the white cards so long. Look, we know the cards. It's like no one needs to be told how the stealth fighter works. We remember it's not hittable till it crosses X because that burned us real hard. And so everyone knows that. And so some of that is familiarity with the cards.
Maybe I should make up some new opponents for
it's interesting. I was thinking about that because my original thought was we'd progress, right? Like we'd get better and eventually we play with the yellow cards and maybe even the red cards, which I've never even played with before. But like it's just a challenge to get through the white cards, and that's fine. But it does mean that I feel like the cards are getting kind of repetitive because like it's just, you know, we've seen them all now. So
Might as well put the red and yellow cards in.
Well, I don't know what the red cards, like I haven't played with them, but I've looked at the rules for them, and there's things like rules for threats that take up all 3 trajectories and rules for threats that phase in and out of existence. And like I'm just like
I mean, maybe you put some of those in and then you fudge like eliminating some white cards, right?
well, yeah, I mean you could.
Yeah,
I think better would be to actually come up with some ourselves.
I guess the on theme.
Well, it's interesting, the card generator tool that I made for creating the cards for like the physical combat part. It's just a generic tool. Like you basically feed it an SVG, and then you tie that to a spreadsheet, and it generates cards. So it would probably only take me like 2 hours or something to make a generator that could generate Space Alert cards. They wouldn't look as pretty, although actually I probably could because I could just import the background into the SVG editor, and it would just look
and you could have
exactly the
Brian
same.
run Stable Diffusion.
I mean, I've generated a bunch of images of starships and stuff that are in that style. I'm sure I've got some around here that would fit.
Yeah, true. I mean, there is the image part. I mean, there's an image on the tabletop, or the shooting combat cards too.
Yeah.
Although, I mean, and you have to provide it, of course. And
Yeah.
if it's crappy, it's crappy, and that's fine.
Yeah.
And if it's nothing, it's nothing, and that's
It's okay.
also
We
fine.
got AI art generators now. Nothing is crappy anymore.
That's right.
Yeah, she just tied into that. Just
Yeah,
like,
so-
automatically. That's an interesting idea. Like, oh no, well, I guess you'd have to install it on your machine, but you
Yeah.
could just basically take the title of the card,
Mhm.
feed that into an AI art generator, and that's just the card generator puts that on the
Yeah.
card for you.
And then you can have ChatGPT come up with its stats.
Yeah.
If you want to spend those 2 hours genericizing the card generator to make ship cards, I'll try and have some for next adventure, where we are going to start out the adventure flying out.
Oh, that's tempting. I don't know if I can find 2 hours before the next adventure, but that's interesting enough to me that I'm thinking about it. I'll see.
Okay.
I'm not going to commit to that, but I would
Okay.
I'd like that to happen.
Yeah.
But
Well,
whether
if
it
you
will
can-
actually happen is another question.
If you can pass me that, I will generate some different ships. So yeah, we make it back. There was a crowd shield fighter, there was a stealth fighter, there was, I don't know, was it a destroyer? I think it was a destroyer. Fairly basic stuff. We had a
There was
saboteur.
only one serious threat. It was all basic threats. But I mean, then you
And we
get
had a
more of them.
saboteur,
But
we had a
still.
saboteur and a malfunction as the internal threats. Those are both fairly straightforward. So yeah, we even looked out the window a couple times.
Yeah,
wiggled
not
the
having to worry
mouse.
about the central. You still have to pull energy to the sides, but not having to worry about the central energy.
Yeah.
It
There
just
was-
made it so easy. Like, I knew it would make it way easier, but it made it even easier than I thought.
There was one instance where Chumley and Pill both took the turbo lift on the same turn, and that caused a delay for Pill. But fortunately, I had left an empty slot, so that wasn't.
And it happened to be
be.
something that timing didn't matter. Well,
Yeah,
of course
it
it
was-
didn't, because there was nothing going on the next turn.
Yeah.
So-
So yeah, and then Pill used his special hyperdrive ability to jump us out of there 2 turns early. So, but we'd already killed everything at that point, so I didn't
That-
even need to.
That raises an interesting strategy of, you can't always do this, obviously, but whenever possible, leave a blank spot after taking the grab lift, because then you
Mhm.
know that even if you get delayed, it will never hurt you.
Mhm.
You can't always do that, of course,
Yeah,
because
sometimes things. are
sometimes
tough.
you're in a rush.
Or you just don't have enough time to do anything. But anyway, yeah, we landed. There was, not quite. After we did finished our regular playthrough, and we arrived at Earth, Robert said, okay, everyone clear your action board and draw 5 more cards. And then the ship had he placed another destroyer on the board.
Mm.
And so it was, you only have those 5 cards that you drew. There's no like space alerty time thing passing, and no, exchange cards or draw new cards or whatever. Just place your 5 cards, deal with this threat. Fortunately, since our ship hadn't been shot to pieces and we had plenty of energy in the tanks, it was actually pretty straightforward with each of us having 5 cards to
Nice.
deal with that.
Yeah, it was easy. And the idea was that we basically came out of our jump into Earth, and this destroyer was like fleeing Earth or leaving Earth, and it shot at us as it went by. So it was after our jump, which is where we usually fight things.
Right.
Mhm.
And then you went and gave them the B cells.
Yes.
They
and then-
said, you didn't get us double B. We said double B.
No, they were like, yeah, you've succeeded on
Yeah.
on your mission. We even gave them
Flawless
money back.
victory.
We were
You gave them the money back.
we were considering like, oh yeah, it only cost us 500,000 credits. And,
And the extra 10
embezzle.
cells, and we
Yeah.
didn't crack one open and look in it.
Mm.
Yeah.
We
Wow.
didn't do any of the dumb things.
Yeah, we didn't do any, we had so much opportunity to do the dumb things, and we didn't do any of it. It was weird. So anyway, yeah, it was basically a rousing success. And afterwards, I was talking with Robert, and he was telling me about how, yeah, it was weird. The party did the smart thing at every opportunity.
Mm.
He had combat cards for literally everyone that we met, except the slug merchant. Because, what if the party just decides to attack them for some reason? I should account for that. And so,
Well,
yeah.
I think there was this idea that we might have to break our way out of prison, and if we annoyed the guards too much, and then fight our way to the Nira thing, and then fight Nira. He even had a stats for the doctor, like the guy who ended up just being taken away. Of course, apparently he sucked. He wasn't like a
Yeah.
combatant, but
Yeah. He was really bad as a schemer as well, because he'd been pulling this plot for like, I don't know, 10 years or something. And the moment we're like, hey, we think you're poisoning her, he was like, well, you got me. And I killed her husband too. Like,
yeah. Yeah. I think Robert was I don't remember exactly what it was, but he was like, because they each have two abilities, like they're like normal and they're like build up ability, and I think his was like punch and then like still just punch. Was his build up ability, but
I think he said slightly better punch was.
Oh, you're right. It was slightly better punch.
Yeah.
I think still just punch would be even funnier, but you're right.
Yeah.
That is what it was. Still just, or no, even slightly better punch.
Yeah.
That just reminds me of the series of consecutive normal punches.
Yeah.
Splat. I started watching that again recently.
Yeah, I haven't watched season 2, but I've been thinking about it. So I really, really enjoyed the first season. So
yeah. Well, as I was telling him at lunch, season 2 is not, I don't think it was as good as the first season, but it was still good. So anyway, yeah. So now that we're back, I'm trying to remember if anything else happened in the denouement part.
Well, I mean, we kind of had the debriefing, but the big thing was we had our next debriefing like the next day, and it was mentioned that like the whole barracks and facility had been like destroyed. So
yeah,
I mean, we all have homes outside of, well, maybe not Pill, but the rest of us have homes outside of the dormitories, but it's like we have stuff there because like when you come to do a mission, you stay there for a few days, like you have rooms there. So all that stuff is destroyed, and the base is destroyed, and yeah. But then there wasn't really anything besides just I guess I don't know where we stayed. I don't know, check into a motel or something until the debriefing.
I think I mentioned that Pill just went and just slept in the rubble or something like that. I seem to recall that Pill just went and slept in the rubble because that's where you're supposed to sleep. This is your dorm. It's a smoking crater. Yes, my dorm is a smoking crater.
Yeah. But I don't think there's anything notable to the debriefing, which was the next day. Oh, right. We were allowed to, there were still some little bits of fighting. Like they'd mostly driven the Is It the Way, but there was like some little spots of fighting here and there, and we could participate. And I think Chumley and Daniels went off and fought.
Yeah.
And then returned the next day for the debriefing. But
we did find out some stuff about the Izith.
That was in the debriefing, but yeah, we can talk about that now.
Yeah, it was well, this is the debriefing, isn't it?
Yep. Sorry. Sorry. Yes, we did.
Yeah. So apparently, a million years ago, they were the Izith Reptocracy as part of the old galactic organization. And then when the War of Silence happened, their homeworld was destroyed, and they wound up becoming the Izith Nomads. So now they are a shipborne society that largely just stays in hyperspace.
Okay.
So yeah, they've been attacking us because we've been trespassing on their territory, essentially going through hyperspace. And who was it? Someone said something like, we should do something to like put a stop to that. And Robert is like, yeah, you could commit genocide, I suppose, but and you're like, whoa.
Yeah, that escalated quickly.
Right there. It's like, we just said we should put a stop to this, not let's exterminate their species.
It's just, yeah, it just immediately made me think of like some sort of like, it's like the war room, and there's like this big general with like the smoking thing. It's like, someone, we need to do something about the threat to our border. Well, we could commit genocide. All right, you talked me into it. Watch the news. Wait. No, I just mean we need to do something about the insurgents. Well, I guess we could commit genocide here. Let me just spill the truth.
So anyway, yeah, so that was pretty much it. Now, there were some plot threads that were created in this adventure that Robert deliberately left open for future exploration. Humanity's true homeworld is the big one there that is left open. And of course, the Izith are still out there and still don't like us, stuff like that. So those things might come up in the future.
Mm.